I was stirring chili for my grandson when my own daughter spat in my face. Not by accident, not in anger that slipped. On purpose, slow, deliberate. That same week, I found papers I never agreed to and money I never spent. She thought I was too old to notice, too tired to resist, but she forgot something important. The house was in my name, and silence has always been my strongest weapon. She never saw it coming. Before I tell you how it all unfolded, I'd be grateful if you subscribed, and if you feel comfortable, tell me where you're listening from. Stories like this aren't easy to share, but sometimes the truths we carry the longest are the ones someone else needs to hear most. My name is Elena Morales. I'm 68 years old. My hands aren't as steady as they used to be, but they still remember how to sew a perfect seam. 40 years behind a machine will do that. I bought my little brick house in Denver when I was 43. It wasn't large, just 2 bedrooms, a narrow hallway, lilac bushes by the fence, but it was mine. I raised my daughter, Daniela, inside those walls. Just the 2 of us after her father left. He said he needed freedom. I needed overtime. I stitched wedding gowns during the day, hemmed uniforms at night. Sometimes I'd wake up in the chair, a needle still tucked behind my ear. Daniela was a bright child, big brown eyes, a laugh that filled every corner of a room. She used to sit beneath my work table, playing with scraps of satin and lace. "Mummy, when I grow up, I'll buy you a mansion," she once said. I laughed and kissed her forehead. "This house is big enough for love," I told her. For a long time, it was. Life, however, has a way of circling back. Daniela married young, had a son, Matteo, moved into a townhouse across the city. And then one evening she returned, 35 years old, suitcase in one hand, Matteo's small fingers in the other. "Just until I get back on my feet," she said. Her marriage had collapsed. Money was tight. Pride was wounded. I didn't hesitate. I never hesitated when it came to her. The first few months felt almost sweet. Matteo's laughter echoed down the hallway. He'd knock on my door at sunrise. "Grandma, can I sleep here?" I'd pretend to grumble about my aching knees, then lift the blanket and make space. Daniela said she was applying for jobs, said the divorce drained her, said she just needed time. I believed her, because believing her felt easier than doubting her. My days were simple. Coffee at 6. Water the lilacs. Sweep the porch. I liked folding laundry when the morning light hit the kitchen window. It made the room glow soft gold. Ordinary routines, steady comforts. My knees creaked when I climbed the stairs. Sometimes I misplaced my glasses, but I managed my bills, balanced my checkbook, even learned online banking, though I never fully trusted it. Daniela began sleeping late, scrolling at the table, sighing often. "This house feels old," she'd say. "It needs updating." I'd smile gently. "I'm not done living here yet." She'd roll her eyes. Small things at first, tiny shifts. One morning, Matteo looked up from his cereal. "Grandma, why does Mommy get mad so much?" I forced a smile. "Adults have worries, sweetheart." But his question lingered, like a pebble inside my shoe. Some evenings, Daniela would stand in the hallway and mutter, "This place makes me feel stuck. Stuck. In the house I built from nothing." I told myself she was stressed. Divorce changes people. Pride hurts. Flashbacks come at strange moments while washing dishes. I'd suddenly remember her 16th birthday. The pink dress I saved months to buy. The way she hugged me and said, "You're the best mum in the world." That memory used to warm me. Lately, it unsettled me. I noticed how she introduced me to friends. "This is my mom. She lives with me. Lives with her. In my house." I never corrected her. Peace seemed more important than pride. But peace, built on swallowed words, is fragile. One evening, she stood by the window and said casually, "Maybe you should think about downsizing someday, somewhere safer." Safer. I looked around at the walls I painted, the staircase I scrubbed, the doorframe still marked with her childhood height lines. "I feel safe here," I answered quietly. She didn't respond. I should have listened to the silence that followed. Because silence can mean many things. Sometimes it means patience. Sometimes it means preparation. And I didn't know it then, but that silence was the last real peace I would feel for a very long time. The day it happened was ordinary. That's what makes it unforgettable. I was in the kitchen, stirring a pot of chili. Matteo liked it thick. Extra beans. I remember tasting the sauce, adding a pinch of salt. Daniela came through the front door, already shouting, "You said Friday. It's Tuesday, Ryan." Her voice cracked sharp against the walls. I turned the stove down low, waited for her to finish the call. When she hung up, I asked softly, "Do you want some lunch?" She turned so fast her chair scraped the tile. "Can't you see I'm dealing with something?" she snapped. "I'm sorry," I said. That word had lived on my tongue for years. She stepped closer, too close. "You're always hovering," she hissed. "Always in the way." And then she spat in my face. Not wild, not chaotic, deliberate, warm, humiliating. For a moment, I didn't move. The chili bubbled quietly behind me. I didn't feel anger. I felt erased. "You're useless," she said. "Just sit somewhere and stop talking." I saw movement in the hallway. Matteo. He had heard everything. I wiped my cheek with the corner of my apron. No yelling. No drama. Just a steady hand. Something inside me shifted. Not loudly, but permanently. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part came later. That afternoon, while Daniela went out, Matteo climbed into my lap, his small arms wrapped around my waist. "Grandma, why does Mommy hate you?" The question caught in my throat. "She doesn't hate me," I whispered. But the boy's eyes were searching. Children sense truth before adults admit it. That night I couldn't sleep. The house felt unfamiliar, like it no longer recognized me. The next morning, Daniela behaved as if nothing had happened. Cheerful. Light. Too light. "Mom, I've been thinking about your health," she said while stirring her coffee. "You're not as strong as you used to be." I folded a towel slowly. "I manage." "Well, maybe we should look at assisted living options soon. Just in case. Just in case." I felt the air thin. Later that week, I heard her in my bedroom. She didn't bother closing the door. "Yeah, Carla, once she's in a facility, I can finally renovate. The market's hot. We could flip this place for a fortune." Flip, as if I were already gone. When she came out, she didn't even look guilty. "Have you seen my charger?" she asked casually, as if she hadn't just planned my disappearance. That night, something else happened. I logged into my bank account. My fingers trembled slightly. Small withdrawals at first. $50, 75, 90, labeled groceries, medicine, gas. But they added up, month after month, nearly half my pension gone. Then I checked Matteo's college savings. $4,000 missing. My stomach tightened. I opened the safe in my closet. The documents inside had shifted. That's when I found it. A power of attorney. Broad. Sweeping. Granting control over everything if I were deemed incapacitated. Signed with my name. But I did not remember signing it. I read it twice. Then a third time. If someone declared me forgetful, confused, she would control my life, my accounts, my house, my freedom. At dinner that evening, she chewed quietly, scrolling through her phone. Matteo tried telling her about a school project. "Later," she said. I studied her hands. Those same hands I once held crossing busy streets. "Mum," she said suddenly, "if you ever start feeling forgetful, you need to tell me. At your age, it happens fast." I looked at her carefully. I'm not confused, I replied. She smiled. We'll see. The chili from days before still lingered in the refrigerator, the apron hung by the stove. Life continued on the surface. But underneath, something had hardened. The spitting wasn't the true betrayal. The planning was. The paperwork. The withdrawals. The rehearsed concern. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't cry in front of her. But something inside me went very, very quiet. And that was the moment I understood I would not stay silent. After that, I stopped reacting. Not because it didn't hurt, it did. But reacting would have fed the fire, and I was done feeding it. Instead, I folded her laundry carefully, smoothed each sleeve, stacked it neatly on her bed. I washed Mateo's lunchbox every night, polished the little spoon he liked, packed his apple slices just right, small acts, steady hands. Inside, I was unraveling. The house felt different, the hallway longer, the air heavier. At night, when everyone slept, I would sit in the living room with the lights off, only the street lamp outside, casting a pale glow through the curtains. I'd stare at the walls I painted years ago. Soft cream. Daniela chose the color. "Make it bright, Mom," she had said back then. We deserve bright. I remember the night her father left. Daniela was 6, curled against my chest, her tiny fingers gripping my shirt. "Is Daddy coming back?" she asked. I swallowed my pride and told her yes. He didn't, so I worked harder, longer shifts, blistered fingers. Eyes burning from late-night stitching, I skipped dinners to save money, saved every tip, every extra dollar. When I signed the papers for this house, I cried in the car afterward, not because it was big, because it was proof. Proof that I could survive. And now, the same house felt like it was slipping from beneath my feet. One afternoon, I overheard Daniela speaking on the phone again. "She exaggerates," she said. "Old people do that. Old people." The word lingered like dust in sunlight. I wasn't old people. I was her mother. That night, Mateo knocked gently on my door. "Grandma, can I sleep here?" I moved the blanket aside. He slid in beside me. After a moment, he whispered, "Promise you won't leave?" I stared at the ceiling. The promise caught in my throat. "I'm not going anywhere," I said softly. But something inside me knew that might not be true. Rain fell for days that week, a steady tapping against the windows. I barely slept. My thoughts circled the same place. The power of attorney, the missing money, the casual mention of assisted living. I imagined her telling a doctor I was confused. I imagined strangers evaluating me, believing her. I walked through each room one afternoon while she was out, touched the dining table, ran my hand along the staircase railing, stopped at the doorframe where pencil marks still showed Daniela's height, at 7, at 10, at 14. So many memories pressed into the wood. And yet, I felt like a visitor. One evening, while clearing dishes, Daniela spoke again. "Mom, what would happen if something happened to you? I'd have to manage everything. Everything." She said it so casually. I looked at her for a long time. "I'm not done yet," I replied. She shrugged and returned to her phone. I went to my bedroom and closed the door quietly. No slam, just quiet. I opened my old sewing box. Inside were letters, photographs, receipts from decades ago. I pulled out a picture of Daniela at 16, smiling, holding her birthday cake. I traced her face with my finger. Where did the girl in this photo go? Or had she always been capable of this, and I simply refused to see it? Some nights, I found myself whispering her name, not in anger, in disbelief. Grief is strange. It doesn't always arrive as tears. Sometimes it arrives as stillness. I wasn't grieving the house. I was grieving the daughter I believed I had raised. But grief can sharpen you. It strips away illusion. It forces clarity. One morning, while watering the lilacs, I felt something new settle inside my chest. Not rage, not sorrow, resolve. The house wasn't the problem. The silence was. And for the first time, I began thinking very carefully. If you're still listening, thank you. Patience isn't weakness, it's quiet strength. And sometimes strength waits. I didn't rush. Rushing belongs to people who panic. I was not panicked. I was precise. The following Monday, I dressed carefully. Pressed blouse. Low, sensible heels. A touch of lipstick I hadn't worn in months. Daniela assumed I was going grocery shopping. "I'll be back before lunch," I said. She barely glanced up from her phone. My first stop was the bank. I asked for the branch manager, not the teller. The manager. He invited me into a small office with glass walls. I placed printed statements on his desk. "These withdrawals," I said evenly, "were not authorized by me." He studied the pages. His posture shifted. "And this account," I continued, "is my grandson's college fund. It is not to be accessed by anyone else." Within minutes, new security measures were set. Daniela's access frozen. Passwords changed. Alerts activated. I signed each form slowly, no trembling. When I walked out of that building, the air felt different. Lighter. But that was only the beginning. The next afternoon, I visited Mr. Alvarez, the same attorney who helped me purchase my home decades earlier. He remembered me immediately. "Mrs. Morales," he said warmly, "it's good to see you." I placed the power of attorney on his desk. "I don't recall signing this." He adjusted his glasses and read it carefully. "It grants broad authority," he said quietly. "Very broad. Can it be revoked?" "Immediately." We prepared the revocation paperwork, notarized, filed, official. Then I made another decision. I changed my will. The previous version left everything to Daniela. The new version created a protected trust for Matteo, an independent trustee. No shortcuts, no loopholes. "Are you certain?" Mr. Alvarez asked gently. "Yes," I replied. I wasn't angry. I was awake. 3 days later, I contacted a real estate agent. A discreet one. No flashy signs, no neighborhood gossip. He appraised the house at nearly $475,000. Daniela had been right about one thing. The neighborhood had grown valuable, but so had I. We listed the house quietly. Private showings only. While this unfolded, I kept my routine. Cooked dinner, folded laundry, watered the lilacs. Daniela remained unaware. One evening she sighed and said, "This house feels like it's holding me back." I stirred my tea slowly. "It has never held me back," I said. She rolled her eyes, if she only knew. 2 weeks later, an offer arrived. Full price, cash, closing in 20 days. I accepted. And here is where the title returns. She spat in my face, so I quietly sold the house. Not out of rage, out of correction. The house was mine. The silence was mine. The decision was mine. I began packing small things first. Photographs, important documents, Matteo's drawings, my mother's cross. At night, when the house was still, I wrote letters, one to Matteo, simple, loving, explaining. None of this was his fault. That stability sometimes requires change. One to Daniela, clear, direct, listing the withdrawals, the forged authority, the insult in the kitchen. No shouting, no accusations, just truth. The final letter was to myself. "You endured enough," I wrote. "You are not furniture. You are not invisible." When I finished, it was nearly 3 in the morning. The house was silent. So was I. On closing day, I signed the final documents at Mr. Alvarez's office. Funds transferred into a new, secure account. When I stepped outside, the sun felt warmer than usual. I returned home one last time, placed the letters neatly on the kitchen table, keys beside them. the sale documents stacked carefully. I walked from room to room, touched the door frames, smoothed the dining table, paused by the staircase marks. Then I folded Daniela's favorite scarf, laid it gently on the porch rail. A quiet goodbye. The stage was set. All I had to do was wait. I left on a Tuesday morning. Daniela was still asleep. Matteo had already gone to school. I carried one suitcase and my sewing kit. That was enough. I didn't slam the door. Didn't pause for drama. I locked it gently and stood there for a moment. The lilacs were in bloom, soft purple against brick. I whispered goodbye. The buyers were scheduled to take possession at noon. By early afternoon, the house would no longer be mine. I took a taxi to the airport. My cousin Rosa had offered her spare room in Minnesota. "Come rest," she told me. "You've carried enough for one lifetime." I turned off my phone before boarding. For the first time in months, I slept without waking. When I landed, I turned it back on. 23 missed calls, 9 voice messages, all from Daniela. The first one was confused. "Mom, why is there a realtor in the driveway?" The second carried urgency. "What are these documents? What did you do?" By the 5th message, panic cracked through her voice. "You can't sell the house. That's our home. Our home." I listened to the final message. How could you betray me like this? I let the silence sit. Sometimes the loudest moment in life is when you say nothing at all. Later that afternoon, she called again from another number. I answered. There was breathing on the other end. Then her voice. "You sold it." "Yes. You had no right. It was mine." A long pause followed. "You're destroying Matteo's stability," she said, her voice trembling now. I closed my eyes. "I protected his future," I replied quietly. "The trust is secure. He will be fine." She inhaled sharply. "You think you're clever?" "No," I said gently. "I think I waited long enough." Her tone shifted. For the first time, there were tears. "Where are we supposed to go?" The question hung in the air. For a brief moment, I saw her as she once was, 6 years old, clutching my hand at a crosswalk. But that memory did not erase what she had done. "You will figure it out," I said softly. I did. I ended the call without anger. Not because I didn't feel pain, but because I felt finished. The following weeks were turbulent for her. I heard through relatives that she scrambled for rentals, blamed me publicly, said I had abandoned her. I did not defend myself. Truth does not chase noise. Meanwhile, I settled into Rosa's small home. We cooked together, walked in the early mornings, laughed about small things. I began helping at a local boutique owned by her friend, folding scarves, altering sleeves, advising women gently on colors that suited them. Women my age would come in quiet, careful, worn down. I recognized that look. I had worn it once. One afternoon, while hemming a dress, my phone buzzed. It was Matteo. "Grandma?" His voice was small. "Are you okay?" "Yes, sweetheart." "Mum says you're angry at her." I paused. "I'm not angry," I said. "I'm just protecting what matters." There was silence. "Will I see you again?" "You always will." Months passed. Daniela found work, moved into a modest apartment. Her voice changed gradually. Less sharp, less defensive. One evening she called again. No shouting this time, no accusations, just exhaustion. "I was wrong," she said quietly. I didn't rush to comfort her. Remorse must breathe. "I need help," she continued. "Matteo deserves stability." That was the first honest sentence she had spoken in a long time. We arranged something structured. Temporary guardianship, clear legal paperwork, firm boundaries. No confusion, no control games. When Matteo arrived with his small suitcase, he ran into my arms. "I knew you wouldn't disappear," he whispered. I held him tightly. In that moment, I understood something clearly. This was never about revenge. It was about dignity. It was about drawing a line. Daniela began therapy, maintained her job, paid back what she owed, slow steps, earned trust, visit by visit. And in that quiet space, without fear, without humiliation, I finally felt free. It has been 3 years now. The lilacs in Denver probably bloom each spring without me. And strangely, that thought doesn't hurt anymore. I don't miss the brick walls. I don't miss the narrow hallway. What I miss sometimes is the version of us that once existed inside them. People ask if I regret it. Selling the house. Leaving without warning. I don't. Because the day she spat in my face, something shifted. Not in her. In me. She spat in my face, so I quietly sold the house. When I say it now, it doesn't sound dramatic. It sounds honest. It was never about punishment. It was about remembering who I was. A woman who survived abandonment, who stitched her way through exhaustion, who bought a home with blistered fingers and stubborn hope. I had already endured harder things. Setting a boundary was simply the next brave step. Daniela and I are different now. Not perfect, not effortless, but careful. She listens when I speak. She does not interrupt. She does not treat me as fragile or forgetful. Respect returned slowly. Not because I demanded it, because I required it. Matteo is taller than my shoulder now. He helps me water plants in the evenings. He asks about sewing, about life, about mistakes. Sometimes he says, "Grandma, you're strong." I smile. Strength doesn't always shout. Sometimes strength sells the house quietly. Sometimes it moves across state lines. Sometimes it says no and means it. I sleep well now, not because everything is easy, but because everything is clear. Maybe justice isn't loud. Maybe it isn't fast. Maybe it's simply the ability to sit at your own table without shrinking. Respect, once lost, can be reclaimed if you are willing to wait for the right moment. And peace? Peace comes when you stop pretending you are smaller than you are. Would you have done the same if it were you? Tell me in the comments. And if this story stayed with you, I'd be honored if you subscribed and joined me for the next one.